Hello, everyone. This is Steve Afasi from Elite Business Insurance, and I wanted to discuss with you flood insurance for renters. Now, flood insurance is one of the most important yet cheapest insurance policies out there that I come across. So basically, if you want to protect your building or your contents from rising water, then a flood insurance policy is what is needed. A lot of times tenants, you'll be renting out a premise, whether it's a residential premise or a commercial premise, and they think because they have a renter's policy, because they have a commercial property policy, that they're covered in the case of a flood. That is not correct. Any sort of rising water, a sewer backing up, a canal, a lake, any body of water, a swimming pool, if the water is rising and does damages to your contents or your building or both, you will need a flood insurance policy to cover yourself correctly. Flood insurance is actually really simple. The way that it is set up is the state of Florida, for example, there is a flood map set by the NFIP, who's the National Flood Insurance Program. And basically what they do is they determine, based off of how close your home is to the water, what the susceptibility is to flooding in that area, the location and the elevation of the actual home. So there's two different zones. There's a preferred zone, which means that you have a low chance of getting a flood. And then there's a high zone, which means that your chances are higher of getting a flood. Basically, if you live by the water, you're more susceptible to flooding than somebody who lives inland. But somebody who's on higher ground has a less chance of flooding than somebody on lower ground. So there are a few factors that impact the price, but basically the price is set by the flood insurance program, and it's based off of the location of your house. However, the other factors that impact the price would be the year the premise was built, who occupies the premise, meaning that if it's a tenant or if it's vacant or if there's an owner living in the premise, the number of floors in a premise. So if you have 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors, it's going to affect the price. The location of the lowest floor in relation to the elevation requirement on the flood map, meaning that in that flood map that the flood insurance program provides, they want to account for where the lowest floor is opposed to the sea level, to basically calculate the chances of flood insurance. And then the deductible you choose and the amount of coverage you choose, meaning that if you have a higher deductible, the price is going to be lower. If you have higher coverages, the price is going to be higher. If you have a lower deductible, the price is going to be higher. If you have less coverage, the price is going to be lower. And then the flood zone, which we talked about, preferred risk or high risk flood zone. These are all the factors of what will cause differences in price for flood insurance, but it is all nationally regulated, so the price is the price. So getting back to the different types of flood zones, there is the low risk to moderate risk, which is considered a preferred zone, and those are going to be the cheapest flood insurance policies out there. When you're in a preferred zone, you get a preferred rate. Now, a lot of times people think that because they're in a preferred zone, they do not need flood insurance. In the state of Florida, I definitely do not recommend that that is true. We are surrounded by water, and out of all flood claims, 25% of all flood claims come from homes or buildings that are located in a preferred flood zone. So think about that. 1 out of every 4 homes that put in flood insurance claims are in a preferred zone. So it would be a cheap price if you get flood insurance in a preferred zone, and it will definitely be beneficial in the case that you ever need it. Now, as far as a high risk zone goes, the prices are going to be a little more expensive. Now, it's going to be determined by an elevation certificate. And what the elevation certificate does is there's a land surveyor who would have to come out and basically take measurements of where your home is elevated, your garage, your first floor, bunch of different calculations. And then we take that elevation certificate and we plug that into the flood quoting software through the NFIP, and then they come up with the rate, with the insurance rate of how much it's going to cost. So if a home was constructed before the new flood zone determination was printed, then you will not need an elevation certificate. However, the majority of houses who are in a high-risk flood zone will need some sort of an elevation certificate, which is a report done by a land surveyor to calculate the elevation of your home. So the preferred zone is going to be a cheaper price, but 1 out of every 4 claims comes from a preferred zone. And then a high-risk zone, it's going to be a more expensive price, and it's going to be determined on the elevation of your home. However, like I mentioned before, flood insurance is extremely important. It covers you for any sort of rising water. And if you do not have flood insurance, rising water, backing up of drains, sewers, any sort of rising water that damages your home, your contents, your building, you will need a flood insurance policy. Elite Business Insurance could help you out with this. Although flood is nationally regulated price, we have access to many flood markets. And we basically take your information, we plug it in, we'll give you different pricing options regarding your coverages, your deductibles. We'll tell you what kind of zone you're in, what you're going to need to move forward, whether you need an elevation certificate or not. And we will make sure that we provide you with the best services and we give you the best coverage for that best price. So give us a call if you are in the market, if you are interested. We can satisfy all of your insurance needs. 1-800-850-8819. Elite Business Insurance. We are elite.